Okay, I'm Chris Reed, Deputy Editor, one of them, of the UT Editorial page, and we are joined by City Council candidate Terry Hoskins. On to you, Laura.
I'm the other Deputy Editor in the unit. Nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
Hi, I'm Tania Navarro, Community Opinion Editor. Nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you as well. Thank you.
Please make a short opening statement, your 2-minute elevator pitch on why you deserve the chance to represent the city or part of the city of San Diego on the council.
Yeah, so I had 42 years of public service, both in the military and then as a San Diego police officer. I served the last 8 years in District 9 as a police officer, as a community relations officer. My entire time, 15 years, has been in District 9. So I've been in every sidewalk, street, alley, creek bed, stream bed, canyon in District 9. It gave me the opportunity to work with community members, business owners, even many of the unsheltered. I've probably talked to thousands of unsheltered before, and I've heard their frustrations and concerns with not feeling represented by their current administration, and they're the ones who encouraged me to run. They felt like disrespect was unacceptable for them, not getting back to, not being heard or represented. And so those issues are important to me. And so they convinced me to run, and here I am.
Okay, I will ask a couple of budget questions and then I will open the floor up to the rest of the board. The city council passed the $2.15 billion general fund budget in June that the mayor and others represent as a step towards, fiscal security. But the analysts say that it doesn't pencil out unless voters approve Measure E, the city sales tax hike, and maybe a future parcel tax as well. Does City Hall's fiscal health require voters to accept higher taxes?
I don't think with our current economy the way it is, I don't know if community members can actually handle another tax. That's why I'm not an advocate for taxing additional taxes at the moment. I think there's other ways that there's a lot of mistrust, I think, with community members, with the fiduciary responsibility that the administration, both mayor and council, have had the past 4 years. People are not happy with the 101 Ash Street. They, for some reason, they seem to take, it's like a shell game is the best way to understand it. Money is moved around to suit different situations. And I think that the community is not ready for that. I think they've lost a lot of trust and confidence within that ability to trust, trust the administration for extra revenue. You figure there was no sunset clause in it. Nothing has been earmarked where they can't move it around for something else. So there's the community and members themselves are not happy with that.
To follow up on that specific point, when we brought this up to the mayor, he said, okay, well, then what are you going to cut? Because the fact is, he says that so much of the attention is focused on relatively small parts of the budget as opposed to the big parts of the budget, the money they spend on infrastructure, the money they spend on employees and stuff like that. So do you see any areas that you think are ripe for cuts to avoid tax hikes?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One thing, I think the mayor has, I forgot exactly how many counters on bike lanes that they use for counting people that are utilizing bike lanes.
But I got to jump in. That's an exact example of a kind of thing that is a tiny expenditure. If you wiped out every single bike lane in California, that's not going to do much for the budget. It is an issue on the margins, as the mayor said.
Well, that could be, but that still focuses on everything. If you look at what's important with our budget, it should be how the city runs day-to-day operations. So if you look at how we failed the flood victims by not focusing on infrastructure the way it should have been, then you can understand that that's important. So we're going to have to look at it to talk, a lot of things. And I think one of the things is cutting back on how we look at purchasing properties. I don't think we do that well, we just don't make good decisions in that. And I think, if you look at all of that, and that's a huge amount of money there, what we spent on 101 Ash Street. So I think there is something with that. If you look at how we are spending money that is not needed.
On the specific idea about the council only cares about deficits or only about spending when deficits loom, the criticism can certainly be made that it wasn't just under Gloria, but under Kevin Faulconer that so many of the spending momentum decisions that we're now having to pay for today got in place. So this is a bipartisan problem. How do you propose to change this dynamic where we don't care about deficits until they're here? We don't stop spending. We don't worry about spending when times seem good.
Well, just a good example of this is yesterday at the city council. So there's a lot of items that have been placed on the consent agenda where they're not even brought up in the council anymore. So there's a lot of contracts that have millions of dollars that added to it, or tens of thousands of dollars that added to it. And the council doesn't have the opportunity to look at it. It just gets on the agenda for the consent and then it's voted on. So that needs to be stopped. And that was the incumbent. That's all of that is his doings. So there is a way, I think, to look at spending. I do think that both, the last 4 years and the 4 years previous to that, I'm not saying anyone was necessarily fiduciarily responsible. I'm just saying that currently it seems like we're not. And, I can't change what Faulconer did, nor can I change the last 4 years. But I will be a voice that I believe will be an independent voice. I'm never going to I don't want to become mayor. I have no further aspirations of being, rising up in the political ranks. I just want to work with my community, my district, bring back stuff that they need to make them prosperous. At the moment, that's not happening. So my focus will be on District 9. Does that mean, I'm a very good negotiator. I did that numerous times when I was a board of directors for the Police Officers Association. I wasn't just a thumbs up on everything that went around on the board of directors. I was a voice of reasoning, and I challenged people. If I didn't think something was right, I challenged it. And I will do the same thing now. But at the same time, I've always had the ability to be a uniter and not a divider. So I have this, I don't know, I just call it leadership style that wins people over. And I understand it has to be a compromise, but at the same time, you got to be willing to stand up for what you believe in. And I will do that.
Thank you.
But you will also be voting on issues that are not in the district. You will be
Correct.
voting on other issues. So you can't just focus on District 9, right?
Well, of course not. I'm talking about when it comes time to look at, whether it be infrastructure stuff or housing or homelessness. I want to also look at District 9 because that's who I represent. I will represent the people in District 9. So of course I will work with other council members and even the mayor, whoever it may be, to look at the totality of San Diego as a whole. But again, my focus will be on district. They have felt for the past 8 years that they have not been heard. I refuse to do that. I will make sure they have a voice. I will be their voice. If they're unhappy with the way the roads haven't been paved for years on certain areas, but yet in other areas in District 9 that they get paved every 2 years, no, I will voice that. I will stand up against that. But I do understand, Laura, what you mean. You have to work with other districts to help them accomplish what they think is best for their area as well. Yes.
I want to ask you about homelessness. Mayor Todd Gloria resists the idea that he's become more hardline over the years, but we can only start with his camping ban. What do you think about his policies? How have they evolved, and what has worked in your view and what hasn't?
Yeah, so of all the thousands of homeless or unsheltered people that I've came across with my 15 years as a San Diego police officer, I really understand what works and what doesn't. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of, I would say, government make is they look at everything as a cookie cutter. Everyone's going to be treated the same, whether it be all shelter first or whether it's housing first. And that doesn't work. Neither one of those focuses on the core issue of what that individual needs. So the very first thing you need to have is a very vibrant triage to understand what's actually going on. Now, I understand also that there's a quality of life issues, not only for the unsheltered, but also for the community residents and the businesses. So it's a balance. And I understand the situation that the mayor was in when he wanted, and he pushed, I think it was with Councilman Whitburn, to push the camping ban. If things are on the books, if you have stuff that's on the municipal codes, then I think they should be enforced. Because what that does, if Terry knows as a unsheltered person that the possibility is there for me to be ticketed or moved or cited or depending upon my behaviorism and items that I have with me, maybe even a custodial arrest. If that possibility lies there, then the chances if the barriers are low in the shelters, which they're not for us, they need to be changed. If those barriers are low, then it's highly probable that I'm going to make that right decision and I will move on my own. Does that make sense to you? At the moment, that isn't happening. And we're just moving people from one spot to another. And it's, again, our outlook is not, I don't think, working. It hasn't worked for the past 4 years. That's why our numbers are always remaining high, regardless of how many times they say people go in, they also exit. So there's a reason for that. And we need to look at the core reason for that. So to get back, I do understand the mayor making that decision. Tourist is a big thing for San Diego. You know, we're America's finest city. We should look like it. We should act like it. And I understand the governor feels the same way. So I do support the mayor's and Whitburn's ban on the homeless ban. I would support that. Absolutely. Now, what comes some other things? Yes, Chris.
I'm sorry. While you're on this topic, I can't help but ask, because you've had experience dealing with homeless individuals for years, like you were saying. We had about 5 years ago a sweep in Point Loma in which I think they offered like 120 people a chance to move into shelter, and only 5 accepted it. And this gets to the reality that many homeless people, we may perceive them as being unhappy or miserable, but they prefer their existence as it is to the mysteries.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so now we've got people who are saying this Starbreak Ranch idea, where you put people in a remote area miles away and you expect them to voluntarily go. I've never met someone who knows this issue who thinks that homeless people want to be moved miles away, even if there's lots of services available there. What's your view of Sunbreak Ridge or whatever it's called?
Well, Chris, I've never even once stated that I'm an advocate for moving anyone out of the city anywhere. I'm not. So I don't know. I think that's probably Larry Turner's, I think, thing. For me, I think you need to have, and you got to have community involvement, or you're going to have pushback like they're having with the mega shelter on Kepner and Vine, because there just wasn't community engagement in that early enough to make that successful. So no, I'm not an advocate of moving anyone anywhere. You need to have it so that where it's more convenient, and at the same time, it has to be smarter. And Chris, going back to that, if any of us, if any 4 of us are addicted to anything, just whatever, and they're trying to convince us to take a shelter, and that shelter requires us to be sober or requires sobriety, we're not going to take it, because that's driving our mind anyways. So our shelters need to have a very low sobriety. Doesn't mean you can do it on the location. You should not do that on the location. But if you go outside and you have beers or whatever, and then you come back, you still should be allowed to be in that shelter. We need to focus on that. People, for whatever reason, have been through different trauma. There's a lack of trust. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've talked along with homeless individuals. And I understand what they mean by that. Totally get that. We can't treat everyone in the shelter as the same. You know, men and women have to be separated. Couples should be separated. What if you're LGBTQ plus community? You're probably going to want to be separated. The same with transgenders. And what if you have an animal? What if your dog is the best friend you ever have and you're not going to go into shelter without that? All those things need to be addressed beforehand. And at the moment, I don't think there's been a plan to go through that. And I don't blame just the mayor. I want to make this clear. I don't, you know, the council has the responsibility to work with the mayor. Doesn't mean you rubber stamp everything the mayor does, but you need to work with him. Maybe your ideas are better than what the mayor is getting at the moment. So you need to work with that. And I don't think that's happened. And I don't think the leadership of the council has provided that. So back to this Dude Ranch, Sunbreak, or whatever you were referencing, that's not me. I never advocated for that, nor would I, because
Thank
one,
you.
you're taking people out of the city.
Thanks very much.
I apologize if you hear a bunch of noise. The garbage men are outside and the neighbor's dog is going crazy. So I
Well,
apologize.
that's a good thing, because my garbage is normally late every week. So I'm glad, hope yours is on time. So
Also, I want to ask you another question on housing. Your opponent says that he's helped pass several policies to stabilize or lower the cost of housing. Do you see evidence of this? The mayor also cites an 18-year high in housing starts, but there's also a revolt against ADUs in some neighborhoods. Do you agree with the criticism, or is no one likely to be happy with the changes no matter what they are? What could you do to please both sides?
yeah, you know, that's probably the $1 million question, Laura, on a lot of things. I think that you have to look at what everyone is saying they're doing, and then look at the proof is in the pudding. Has housing or affordable housing, has it appeared? No, it hasn't really. There's a good argument that in the last 3 years, the bonus ADU policy that the council voted on to change from what was mandated by California, 93% of all ADUs did not use the bonus ADU program. So all that's really doing is kind of putting community members against community members. They make these high rise, if you want to call it that, and I don't mean to call it like a high rise, but they put these 2 or 3 stories. It blocks sunlight from people's backyards. It invades privacy. When there's other areas, I think that that easily they could focus on. I don't know if I don't think anyone is focusing on like modular homes, right? Our short-term rentals is out of control. There's thousands of short-term rentals that are being misused against. It's just a loophole, but it still needs to be closed. And there's probably 4,000 plus housing units that would be able to go online immediately. So no, I don't think that what's been passed by the council is working. I mean, currently in this area, a studio is, I think the last I was looking at was $2,300. A 1-bedroom, which is only just a couple of more square feet than the studio, is 26. That's not affordability, I don't think. So no, I don't think it is working. I think there's things they need to think about that's outside the box. And I want to be that different voice. It's easy to say that what's been going on, we're going to do this, we're going to incentivize developers, we're going to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe you guys can correct me, I think developers are still paying, aren't they still paying in lieu fees? So instead of having to build affordability, they're just paying money in a fund that I don't think has been touched, from my understanding. I don't know how much is in it, but I don't think that fund has been touched. So I think they should either do 2 things: raise that in lieu fee, raise it to the point where it's not advantageous for developers to just pay it. They need to start making affordability homes. Stop making luxury homes. You ever watch the movie, and I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but you ever watched the movie It's a Wonderful Life? I used to watch it all the time. One of my favorite movies. And if you think about the housing situation, I can't remember everyone's name, but I think it was a Bailey thing that gave money out, loans and that kind of stuff. But he started, there was like everyone bought little tract homes. Well, Laura, I live in a tract home. I don't live in a multi-million-dollar home that was just built. We need developers to start making tract homes or tiny homes or modular homes, or maybe even my first home I bought was in North County, was a mobile home. Those things. We have to think outside the box. Every home can't be like it would be in Point Loma or Del Mar, right? We have to get out of that mentality, and developers need to do that. And at the moment, we're incentivizing the wrong people with the wrong thing.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you just to keep your answers a little bit brief and try to stay on track because we have a number of questions that we're trying to get through.
I will do my best.
And I'm going to change gears right now and ask you how you feel about the federal and state response to the sewage crisis in the South Bay, which is very much still part of the city's jurisdiction. Should the Biden and Newsom administrations have done more instead of seeing this local nightmare as not qualifying as a federal emergency? And also, I just want to reiterate, because of what you said earlier, we realize this is not in District 9, but you would totally be voting on these issues.
Absolutely. But it wasn't just the Biden and Harris administration. I mean, this has been going on for years. So absolutely, it is a federal issue. And, you know, now, I guess the better question would be, how much leverage do we have, you know, in a relationship with the state, so the state can get with the federal? But absolutely, this needs to be, this is how many days was the beaches closed? 1,000 or something like that? They just recently, that is unfathomable. And it's so disenfranchising to the communities that live there. They're affected by it. That's just totally wrong. So again, I don't think it's all needs to be put on any administration. I think or the state, as far as that matter, but it's definitely a huge crisis and it needs to be handled as an emergency. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yes.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about some other topics. Maybe it's because crime remains relatively low in the city, but in topics like police reform and homelessness, those are issues where many activists feel like City Hall is no longer on their corner. Councilman Harry Foster made some very poignant comments about the need for more police accountability last year when we met with him as a candidate. As an officer, what is your view on the reform movement?
Yeah, so when I got my doctorate, my dissertation was on community policing. And it was like a 270-some page dissertation. And I didn't use any law enforcement at all for my chronological study. I only used people from District 4 and people from District 9. I tell people this all the time. If Chris goes out tomorrow and buys a brand new car, right? But the electrical stuff, the mindset and all the brains of it, whatever, is from a 1990. You gonna want that car? No. So why are we still policing with models from the late 1900s or whatever, right? Everything's evolved. Police has to, law enforcement, I don't want to just say police because law enforcement in general needs to evolve. It has to be a community effort. It has to be both sides talking. I think there's important issues on both sides that both sides need to be discussed. So I agree with Henry. I mean, when it came time for the No Shots program to be brought up for the budget, I spoke out in support of that. That program needs to be funded. It's important. but wraparound programs need to be funded as well. And I think they rely on too many grants from other areas, but yes, I do believe that. And I think if you talk to any law enforcement officer or leader within the law enforcement ranks who got into that profession for the right reasons, right? They will agree with you that reform has to happen. It should happen at the state level, personally, because when things happen at the state level, then it's mandated everywhere else. You have no choice but to do it. The problem when you try to mandate stuff at a city level, well, Tanya, when you go to Lemon Grove, that may not apply to you then.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of, that kind of stuff that you have to deal with, but absolutely. And I'm a big advocate for stuff being done at the state level. That automatically mandates everything else in the state.
Sure. I also want to ask you, District 9 includes some of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city. What would be your message to those residents of the district who cannot participate in the election?
So just like when I was a law enforcement officer, I didn't care if you were a citizen or if you weren't. That wasn't my goal. That wasn't what I was about. My goal was to make sure that I provide a service the best that I could to keep you and your family safe and you and your property safe. As a council member for District 9, the jewel of San Diego is our multiculturalism. That's amazing. That's one of the reasons why I chose, when I got first assigned to the Mid-City Division Police Department, I didn't want to move. I mean, police officers are always going to different jobs, detectives, whatever. You may go to the beach, you may go to North, no, I fell in love with the members of District 9, the various community members. I still feel that passion. So they will not be left out. And, I think everybody needs to come to the table. I totally dislike when people set barriers and they go, people of this area, people that area. A great example. I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago at the YMCA in District 4 when they do their weekly updates. And the chief of police was there and some other people there. And they were talking about some program they're trying to do. And they used the line as north and south. Guess what they used? 8. So when everyone got through talking, I raised my hand. I'm like, look, I'm just a Terry, right? I have no voice. I have no, I'm just Terry at the moment. I can't believe you guys utilized the 8. I said, because years, the 8 and the 94 has been a blocking point from those in the north and those in the south. And we're doing it again. I go, you guys got to come up with something better than that dividing line. I forgot what the issue was. And it was, to me, that was something that should have been automatically thought about when they, tried to implement this. And I can't even remember what the program is now, Tanya, but that should have been someone should have said that somewhere, right?
Mhm.
And no one did. So they took it back off and they were going to try to do it and whatever, maybe do east and west. I don't know what they're doing. It's not my wheelhouse, but I am not a divider. I despise that. If you purposely set out to try to put groups against groups, you're doing more harm than you ever could do good. There's a lot of great people in District 9. I'm in every community, not just those that are underserved. There's so many great community members in the other areas that want to help people but you can't divide. And so I would ensure that they have a voice. We failed them. Our city failed them in the floods of January. We failed every one of them that was flooded. All those victims, we failed. And I think we're still failing them now. They should sue the city. if they lost property, homes, man, anyways, I'm off on a tangent. But yes, the city failed those victims. And it's important that we understand that.
Thank you.
Your opponent has had a series of clashes with the city attorney of San Diego in recent years. And we met with him and he seemed kind of sheepish about it, but he stuck to his guns and said that he just feels like she's getting issues wrong. But he's acting in this not by saying, rethink your opinion. He's tried to reduce her power and tried to reduce her say in the language of some proposals and laws that were before the city. What do you think about this? Do you think the city attorney is someone who serves a checks and balance? Or do you think that the city attorney should have limits on his or her authority because it can get away in the way of big policy decisions, as your opponent believes?
Yeah, so I think there's more to it than just what my opponent said. I do think that there's positions in the city, especially elected positions, that need to have that voice. It's like a check and balance. They have to be there. They have to give that supposedly unbiased opinion on what's going on. From what I looked at, some of those issues that he tried to prevent her from, speaking on a couple of them, he said he tried to silence her. I think that was going back and forth. No, I served 26 years in the Marine Corps. I've been to almost every combat zone you could think of. I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I led Marines and sailors in combat. I don't even know why I'm here, Chris. I had Marines and sailors that didn't come back. I wish that would have been me every day instead of them, because they were younger. They had their whole lives in front of them. I will refuse to silence anyone who has a right to speak. And in this case, that's her job, is to bring up her point to the council. If you disagree with that, then you disagree with it, but don't silence her and don't be rude.
Have you taken a position on who should succeed Elliott, her deputy, or former council member Brian Mainshine?
I voted. I already sent my ballots in already. I went to PolitiFest a week or so ago, and that's the first time I really heard Brian speak, was there. I really like, and I'll just leave it at this, when someone's been a deputy attorney in a position like that for so long, who's already knows the system. I think that was a big telltale for me. And I don't know exactly what you're asking me, but
did you vote for Ferbert or Mainshine?
Ferbert.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll find out when you write the article on who my opponent voted for.
He didn't really come out and say he insisted he said that he endorsed Mainshine. He didn't, that's not the same thing as saying he voted for him, but he said he endorsed him for what it's worth.
Did you hold him to that? Did you push him? You just pushed me.
We asked the same question of him and he was defensive about it. So we certainly asked him.
Okay.
Terry, is there anything else that we didn't ask you that you want to point out? Any other subjects that we didn't touch on?
Well, I think you touched on them. I think a lot of my answers may have bled over, different to different questions. And I do apologize if I ramble. That's what sergeant majors do in the Marine Corps. They kind of talk a lot. So I apologize for that. I guess not really an issue, but the point that I really want to drive home is that of all the people that I speak to and spoken with during my, years especially my last 3+ years as a community relations officer, people are tired. They're tired of what's been going on. And you can sit there and say, oh, we're making progress, but it doesn't take someone very long to realize nothing is changing. Homeless isn't getting better, right? Infrastructure's not getting better. We're still, I mean, the state auditor came down months ago and said that we have no, according to him or her, we have no idea where millions of dollars went for that was given to homelessness, whether or not those programs worked. That's unresponsible as an elected leader for that to happen, right? Now they can come back and say, oh, we know exactly where it is, but I don't know. I question that. And that's a lot of the stuff that is happening. You know, I would never, and I can, you know, give Sean a pat on the back for being city council for 3 years in a row, council president. I mean, I would not want to do that, because every time I seen a council president, Georgette was one. I think she won after like the first year. Very similar, I think. I think you just get so busy, and I think this is what Laura, you were thinking about earlier. You get so busy with dealing with the entire city because you're not the mayor, but yet you're still running the council. And I think you just lose focus on what's important to you. And what's important to me is every voice in the district. I don't care where you live. I don't care what color. I don't care what gender. I don't care what sexuality, what religion. That is why Mid-City is the best district in San Diego. We don't necessarily, I think, utilize that to our benefit. I mean, our multiculturalism is amazing. We don't showcase it enough. And I want to do that. I want to, you know, our mom and pop businesses along El Cajon Boulevard and University, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with El Cajon Boulevard or University, but if you drive from 70th Street to the 805 on El Cajon Boulevard, do the same thing going the opposite way on University, you tell me what the streets look different, what businesses look different. University has been forgotten, not just by this administration, but by other administrations. And I want to put small businesses. We're not going to have an Amazon, you know, area. No, we're not going. We're going to have small mom and pop businesses, and the ones that are in business now, they need our support. We can't forget them. And my incumbent has said that he doesn't really care about businesses that are already established. He wants to focus on businesses that are up and coming. Where if you don't focus on businesses that are also established, they won't be here. You have to look at everything. You got to be a council member for everyone. And that's my voice. That's what I want my voice to be. So I don't know if your questions really targeted any of that. But I would like to say that's my goal. Again, I've never been a divider. You know, when we was in Iraq, the last 5 of my 10 months, we helped put cities back together. Infrastructure back together. It was horribly destroyed. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of working with, I mean, I speak Arabic to a point. Don't embarrass me because I'll probably try and I'll mess it up. But, you know, I enjoy, and I got friends in every culture, every community here in District 9, because they realized when I was a community relations officer for them, I was responsive. I got back with them. I didn't disregard what they said. If they had a complaint, great. I looked at their complaints from their perspective, not my perspective. I would do that same thing as a council member. I think it's important.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We appreciate your spending time with us. Thanks again. This should be posted online next week, and we should make our endorsement. I'm not sure if it's going to be next week or whenever, but we're going to start to talk about it. So thank you very much for coming in, Terry. We appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you three for taking the time. I know you're busy. I read all your stuff, so you know, taking your minutes out to listen to some old guys talk is I appreciate it. So thank you.
And
Thank you very much.
I know University Avenue. I've been to Super Cocina many times for what it's worth.
Well, it's worth a lot to me. You know, they approved that huge storage facility off 52nd and University, right? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Okay, got to go now. Thank you so much, Terry.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.